Hi, so I'm going to draw Robyn, and I have a model sheet here. This is what we use in animation to remind all the artists how the character is drawn and to help us all draw her in the same way. So I'm just going to draw her in a simple pose, and we'll talk about the shapes that she's made out of. So I have a line of action to start with. Now she's not doing anything, so it's just a straight line, but it gives me an idea of her height. Here's the bottom and the top of her, and I guess about midway through is going to be her belt, or a little bit higher than midway because she has very long legs. And basically Robyn at the start of the movie is very based on squares, and it really shows her inner personality is very uptight and very controlled by the town and the way that her dad sees the world and the way the people in the town see the world. So she's all made out of squares. So if we think about her hood, it's just like a diamond shape, like a square on its side, and her head fits inside. Now don't worry, we're going to draw through and then we're going to do the final line. So to start, we're just drawing based on simple shapes, and using simple shapes helps all the animators draw the same way. It also helps us say something about the character. Later on you're going to see Maria drawing Maeve, and Maeve is made out of mostly circles. So in contrast, Robyn is made mostly out of squares. And this is something you'll spot in most animation. If you look at even a movie like Pixar, like Up, that isn't made with hand-drawn animation. If you look at something like Up, you'll notice that the two main characters, one is a square and one is a circle. So this is a trick that a lot of animators use. But in hand-drawn animation we have the extra advantage because we can make our drawings have a certain feeling to them by just how we draw them, by the lines we use. So you can see as I'm building her up, she's made up out of simple shapes, and even her legs, let's see, we have a big triangle shapes here, which are the sides of her coat when she's hunting, and they flap up and down when she's running. And then she's got big kind of baggy trousers, but they also make a kind of rectangle shape. Her boots make a kind of rectangle shape. And yeah, have a look at your favourite cartoon characters, whether it's Bart Simpson or SpongeBob or Mickey Mouse, and have a think what are the simple shapes that they're made out of. SpongeBob's a pretty easy one. Mickey Mouse is pretty easy too. But just have a look at your favourite characters and see what kind of shape language the animators used to say something about the character. Sometimes it's really subtle and sometimes it's really obvious. But anyway, we just did a big triangle for her cape, and then we have a crossbow. Now there's no getting around it. Crossbow is pretty much a semicircle no matter what. There's the crossbow on her back. She's going hunting. Maybe we can give her a little quiver of arrows. She's carrying on the side of her. How is it attached? Cartoon magic. And now we get into her face. So you can see she's made out of simple shapes. Look, a big triangle for her cape, a big diamond for her hood. Her head is a kind of a square that we can round off. That's the hair on her head. Then we can find a center parting using our center line. That's where her hair parts. And now we can have a place around here with 2/3 up her face where we can put the top of her eyes. And her eyes are also basically squares. Modified squares. We round it off. We don't make them completely square, but they're based on a square. And then we have her nose, which is just a little tick like that. And she has a little overbite. A lot of fun designing this character. Based her a little bit on my wife when she was a little girl. That's another fun thing you can do if you're designing your own characters. You can look at people you know, people you like, or people you don't like if it's a villain, and base the characters on those, and that gives you a little bit extra personality for free because you've based it on a real person. You don't have to imagine what their personality is. You can imagine your character as the person you know. Okay, so that's our construction, and that gives us the basic building blocks of our final drawing. But we're not finished yet. That's what we do to build up the character, and we use all our lines as loosely as possible so that we don't interfere too much with the final drawing. Now we can go and make the final drawing. And what's nice about hand-drawn animation is how we draw the lines can give us a little bit more information about our character, tell us a little bit more about who they are. So let's see, we're going to use a pen, not too thick, yeah, nice thin pen, and now we can start to make the final decisions. Maybe we draw an eye like this, then we make another line to make her have a nice eyelash. So you can go as carefully as you like. I have to go a little bit faster than I like because we only have so much time, but you can take your time at this stage. And what's nice about using a construction layer on a piece of paper underneath, or if you use a very light line to do it with pencil and then do it with a darker line or a marker on top, that means if you make a mistake you can just go back and you can always check using the construction layer if you've gone right or not. Okay, so now we've got our eyes and we used a little bit of a thicker line to show she has a bit of an eyelash. Now we can carefully follow the shape of her nose, and sometimes it's nice to put a little bit of a thicker line under the nose. We can give her a little shy smile and an overbite. And now we're starting to see Robyn, aren't we? Okay, so when we trace the sides of her face, come down in a point like that. She kind of has a long face that looks a little bit like a shield, and her ears are right beside, so you can always remember where the ears are. If you imagine, what if this character had to wear glasses? Their glasses will fall off unless the ears are exactly beside the eyes. So that's a little trick I learned when I was younger about knowing where to place the eyes as I was drawing. You can do a few extra lines of hairs that are a little bit stray. Now we can bring the rest of her hair in place and another part of her hair. So what used to be a hard square when we constructed it is now much softer because we're thinking about what are we drawing? We're drawing hair, so we have to be a little bit softer. It's not made out of cardboard. So hair is kind of soft and it kind of bunches up. So we can think about that as we draw it. Another thing we start to do now is think about overlap. And when we constructed, we drew the whole shape, but now we want it to feel like the hood is in front. So we can put the hood, the first line of the hood on top like that, and the next one on top like that, and it looks like her head is kind of inside the hood just by using overlap, which is a really simple rule. That helps a lot when we're drawing hand-drawn two-dimensional characters to give them a little bit of 3D, makes them seem a little bit more believable. And this stage, if it was a comic book, would be called inking. In animation we call it cleanup, but really this is the most important stage in a lot of ways because these are the lines that will end up on screen. So you can kind of draw loosely and sketchy when you're constructing your character and have a lot of fun, but when it comes to this stage it's good to take your time and make decisions carefully, but enjoy it. Don't get too uptight, you won't have any fun. And what's nice about when you're drawing a character like Robyn is you can use really hard lines and really definite control lines, but if you're drawing a character like Maeve or a wolf or somebody who's really wild and rough, you can kind of use a lot of scratchy lines to help show that they're kind of wild and a lot more free than poor Robyn is when we first meet her. But if you watch carefully in the movie, you'll see in Wolfwalkers, you'll see that Robyn starts off with tight lines like this, but slowly over the course of the movie she changes. Her personality starts to change and her worldview starts to change and the things she cares about starts to change, and so her lines start to change and she starts to become much scratchier and rougher. And that's something I really love about hand-drawn animation that's special, that you can't do with a computer. So now I'm just carefully working my way through all the shapes that we drew earlier, making some final decisions. Every now and then, if you want, you can just check back underneath to make sure you haven't gone wrong. But basically, if you use a thin piece of paper like this, you can see pretty well what you're doing as you go along. little triangles for feet, little squares for the buckles on her boots. Okay, so I'm trying to be careful, but I'm also trying to go fast, so you'll probably do a nicer drawing because you'll be going much slower and more carefully than me. But basically, that's our character Robyn. And there's one final thing I like to do after I've done all the outlines with a nice thin line, is go back and make some decisions at the end. And we usually use a thicker pen for that, or a thicker pencil, and that way we can decide to put some weight in certain places. So we always try to make them look a little bit like they were carved out of wood, like a wood block print. And if you look at those old printings, they had a lot of different line thicknesses, and that allows us to do something a little bit wonky, but it makes the drawing have a little bit more character. So one thing you can do is add a little bit of extra line thickness on the underside, and it gives a sense that the light is above, and it's just a very slight feeling of weight as well, as if the weight is coming down from above. So this is called line quality, and this is a pretty wonky line quality here because I'm going fast, but you get the idea. And the more you look closely at your favorite comics or cartoons, you'll start to see that there's lots of little tricks in this stage that can be used to help give your character weight or certain emotions or certain feeling. And it's always fun to spot. Whenever you've been practicing drawing, you start to see more and more of the tricks that you're using in the characters that you're enjoying, whether it's a cartoon or a comic or video game or anything like that. Okay, so very quickly and very roughly, there's Robyn. And if you have time, you can start to bring colours in and start to colour her in and make her come even more alive by adding colours. But that's basically how we draw a cartoon character. And with those basic tips, you should be able to draw your own characters, or the characters from Wolfwalkers, or indeed characters from any cartoon that you like. Hope that was fun.